This is Train to Perform, the undisputed alpha podcast in training, fitness, and sports performance. Here, you'll develop your skills with the cold, hard facts in fitness, sports performance, recovery, and nutrition. Real, tried and true, evidence-based facts that have been proven to move you faster, move you stronger, and move you forward. Now, here's your host of Train to Perform, Julian Sisman.
Hello, and welcome back to the Train to Perform podcast. Today on our podcast, we have Andrew Langford. He is a strength and conditioning coach, high performance consultant. He is a part of the IUSCA, which is the International University Strength and Conditioning Association. They are a group that does sort of evaluations of strength and conditioning programs at universities. They also do evaluations of programs of the athletic performance programs at different universities. They have partnerships with different universities in the United States, different universities in Australia, Britain, and we talk about the strength and conditioning field, but we also talk about different topics on how important strength and conditioning is for athletics, for youth development, and try to touch bases on different things, and then we kind of touch base on different things with soccer. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Please, again, when you finish, please rate and review, and hope you guys have a good day.
Yes, good. Yeah, I think trying to adapt to these weird circumstances we have at the moment, but I think everyone's the same. I guess you'll be similar over there, but they just seem to keep changing what the restrictions are, what you can and can't do, and it just makes everything difficult really to plan.
Yeah. So, what are you able to do at this point?
A lot for us over here.
And where are you located again?
So
I'm in UK, but what?
Yeah. So I'm in Leeds, which is 200 miles north of London. A pretty big city over here. The restrictions are that elite sports people can still train, compete, and things like that. So it kind of depends who you work with. If you work in a regular gym, they're all shut down at the moment, totally shut down. If you work for an elite professional team who has their own facility, then that can all be open and going ahead as usual. You just have to go through all the protocols of testing, taking temperatures, the COVID tests and everything like that. So it really depends on, what you work in or what you do.
So, that's crazy because over here, it's really, they do it based on capacity. So it's you can only have so many people in there at one time. And then basically for a restaurant, it's totally no eating inside. So it's all takeout. But really it's kind of really the biggest restrictions. And then of course, literally you have to wear a mask everywhere, even outside. So, which is fine. We've been doing this now for almost a year. So,
yeah, you kind of get used to it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the tough thing here is they closed all non-essential shops again.
Oh,
wow. And restaurants. You can get takeaway, so you can. Some will stay open and you can buy food, but you can't have it even outside. You have to take it home or get a delivery. All non-essential shops. So anything that's not a grocery store or hardware store have all had to close again, and that's going to be right through till the middle of February, at least they're saying.
Wow.
Which is a long time, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So my question for you, first question is, how did you find, I'm assuming you found out about me through because I did a podcast with Boyle. So is that right or am I wrong?
Yeah, I think through Twitter, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw that you're doing some good podcasts out there. So we're obviously trying to look for these opportunities to discuss what we're doing as well and things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, kind of fill me in on what you guys are doing. I know you're obviously in UK. It's a little bit different than the setup we have here. I know in UK, correct me if I'm wrong, there are two, I'm assuming now with you, maybe are there like two sort of like strength conditioning associations, or is it just yours and that's it?
So there's always been, or certainly for a long time, there's been the UKSCA.
Yeah, okay.
Which I guess would be kind of the NSCA equivalent. Again, that's a non-profit organization, similar to us. And they've done a really good job. They've had our standard accreditation over in the UK. And they've got a lot of resources and done a lot of support in areas like that. Obviously, with what we've brought out, we're looking mostly within the university sector, or certainly that's where our focus is, although some of it, as you'd expect, would extend out into other areas. And obviously on that international scope, really, even though we're registered in the UK, probably more of our partners are actually based over in the USA. Probably the largest proportion of our base is over in the USA, and then we've got a number of partners over in Australia as well. So the editor-in-chief of our journal is from over in Australia. So we've really got that worldwide presence within kind of the education sector, particularly universities.
Okay, awesome. So, with your association, like, what are you guys trying to like basically do? Like, what's your goal?
Sure.
What are you like? How would you sort of be different than what the UK is? I mean, I know it sounds like you're very into the university sector. What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, we originally started just as when we started informally, it was just a group of coaches in universities because we recognized there was limited support available, really. There wasn't really any sharing of best practice, wasn't much collaboration going on. Levels of pay it was poorly understood at different universities, so we had that kind of group of coaches trying to look at solutions to that. What we found was at that time, a lot of universities in the UK were starting to do degrees in strength and conditioning and master's degrees in strength and conditioning, whereas before it had been degrees in exercise science or things like that. So it was becoming more specialized with those degrees. And it was a similar circumstance there where there was no real guidance over what those degrees should be, how much practical elements they should include, what they're working towards, and things like that. So a lot of the academics from those programs are interested in how they could get together, again, share best practice, collaborate, look towards some standards and guidelines within that area. And then through links that we had, I'm in America myself, so I had some contacts over there. And a lot of those contacts were really keen on getting involved as well. Because even though there are the NSCA and other organizations over in America, it's kind of within that university sector, there's elements that are similar in terms of those collaborations haven't been as good as they'd like them to be. So they were keen to be involved. And then a final area which tied it all in was the access to research and opportunities to publish. So, within S&C, you only really get opportunities to publish if you work at a university. Costs to publication are pretty high. Those researchers usually, obviously, due to the nature of their job, are lab-based jobs. So you don't really get coaches and practitioners contributing to that. So we wanted to look at how we could deliver a solution that would help. What we kind of had was bridging the gap between researchers and coaches. So we came up with our journal that basically anyone can publish for free and you can read it for free. which should really open up all of that network. So that was kind of how we started and what we got going. So it's kind of brings us to where we are now, where some of our key focuses at the moment are the degree accreditation program, which is largely based at universities in the UK, which, as I said, are offering these degrees and master degrees in strength and conditioning. Although we've got a few in Australia going through that as well. We've got a department external evaluation program, majority of which will be targeted over in the US. So we've had a number of Division 1 universities go through the process already, which is a little bit like an audit, but an independent audit coming in to look at the department, tell you what we think you're doing really well, give you a few ideas for what we think you could improve on from that independent viewpoint. And again, sharing those areas of best practice. And then obviously the journal, which we've just renamed the journal. Actually, we've been approved the title of International Journal of Strength and Conditioning, which I'll say is 100% free resource. So they're kind of our key areas that we're focusing on at the moment.
So it sounds like a lot of, instead of just getting lab research, you're able to like put it out to, people like me or somebody else. So it's like easily practical.
That's definitely one of the aims. I think that's something that we consistently see within a field like strength and conditioning, where it is an applied science, which is always a challenge because, your principles of science and your lab-based activities are very reductionistic, focused on a particular area within the lab, very controlled. But then, as you'll know as a coach or when you're in the field, that's not what happens at all. It's chaos, and you're looking at many different scenarios, different things are happening, all different types of people. So it's quite challenging to figure out what applies and how to apply it, and it often gets lost in translation. So I think that's a big part of what we're interested in, particularly through the scope of universities, is how we can better bridge that gap. And all of the things that we're doing hopefully should help work towards that.
Awesome. Yeah. It's always interesting. Like right now, I'm doing like my PhD, and you just like read all this research, and you take it and dissect it so that you can somewhat apply it or figure out like, okay, what are they trying to do here? But then, like you said, like, I work in a gym. It's a private gym. I work with majority soccer players because like that's kind of what I played when I was growing up. And, it's not one of those things where like, you're not really under constraints, so you kind of can do whatever you want, but like you're trying to apply like some of these concepts. So, within like an hour or whatever time frame you have. And so, it's a little bit different than in a lab where you're just like, all right, we're going to like focus on, one particular type of energy system or one particular type of strength. And we're going to do this over time and whatever. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a great, that's something great. Like, honestly, I'm going to be honest, like I've never heard of your organization until you messaged me on Twitter, which is a good thing. Cause now that because I like to read research, and somewhat figure out a way to use it. Like, I don't just like read it and like, all right, cool, this is cool. Like I want to apply it like immediately.
Sure.
So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, we're a pretty new organization, really.
Okay.
With how we've been functioning at present. Like I say, informally, we kind of been doing bits and pieces for a few years, but it's kind of the last 12 months that we've really managed to solidify our partnerships and get everything going fully. And then the journal has only really been going since kind of March, April last year. So yeah, pretty new, and the new name of the journal is only launched since the 1st of January this year. So yeah, we're obviously emerging in that regard, but we've already got a number of good partnerships that we're kind of working on. So I think like you say, hopefully we can look at a lot of those challenges and issues, and I think universities do play the key role in that, particularly with, like I say, with degree programs in the UK now, where and the USA will be similar as well. They'll start going down that more specialized route, I'm pretty sure. We've got over 20 degree programs in strength and conditioning now in the UK, over 20 master's degree programs.
So let me interrupt you real quick. So is that like totally different than exercise science, or have they just basically switched from exercise science to strength and conditioning?
Yeah, I mean, there's some switch there. I mean, there's still sport and exercise science is the big subject in the UK. But I think that was a really, really popular program. And I think people were going into those degrees, and when they were graduating, the competition for jobs was so high, and the level of learning probably wasn't specialized enough. So I think universities saw the opportunity to start specializing much more at an earlier age. So rather than where you'd specialize maybe a little bit later, traditionally at your master's degree level or PhD or going on to do further study, they kind of thought, well, we can offer degrees because there's enough people to do it. And because degrees function as businesses, they don't always care as much as they should about the outcome. so they're just willing to put the degrees programs out there if they've got people who will apply for them, without thinking, well, are there jobs for them, or are we necessarily creating a great strength and conditioning coach? And things like that. So we've got a lot of programs in strength and conditioning now, a lot of degrees in strength and conditioning, and like I say, it's a little bit hit and miss as to what the outcome of those would be. For me, and it's not necessarily down to the course leaders or anything else, it's due to constraints of the course and the universities, but there's very limited practical experience or quality practical application, which, as you'll know, and as you're saying, you can learn as much as you want out of a textbook, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to coach or be valuable as a coach without having that experience. So there are a lot of areas that we're trying to address in. So for us, for programs to be degree accredited with us, they need to ensure that everyone has at least 750 hours of practical experience.
So is that like an internship?
It could be through internship. So with the universities are free to fill those hours however they want. So that could be partly on the course where they're doing things in the gym and undergoing that work. It could be through internships. It could be through work placements. It could be through employed work. But yeah, we're trying to designate that minimum level of experience that we need them to have before we're going to say that they have a level that we could say is accredited, which I think is really important, and it's something that's not been there in our profession before. So it's something that we hope will make a little bit of a difference there.
No, I agree with you on that, especially with the like actually working. Like it's a little bit different here. I don't know. You might correct me if I'm wrong. The way you can just kind of get a certification here and you can work. Like really, that's as simple as that.
Yeah.
You don't even need a degree, which is, to me, is a little, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's okay because you submerge yourself in the work and you have to really figure it out without like learning really anything about the body, which to me, I don't think is good. I think personally, if I were to like say, hey, like, I mean, not a law, but like some type of like, policy. I think if you're going to work with somebody, especially like training, like personal training, some type of sports performance, like I personally think a policy should be that you have to get some sort of degree to understand just like what you're doing with the body and not just like burn somebody out. Because I think a lot of people, look at personal trainers, look at sports performance coaches, whatever you call them, in the wrong way because, many get a bad rap because they just like kill people every time instead of slowly like understanding like how the body works, how adaptions work, how, you can't just like go hard every 3-4 days a week and things like that.
Yeah, I think that is really important, and I think you see it in other professions and other sectors. So in the UK, for instance, physiotherapists, similar to athletic trainer over in America, you kind of have to have had that experience, and that it's a very tightly regulated body and sector to call yourself a physiotherapist, and you have to have done the degree and the practical experience. Similar within any area of medicine, obviously. Similar within areas of psychology, and to be a therapist and things like that. Yet it's never really been there within the exercise profession. And it's probably never going to happen that it's going to be a fully regulated body just because of how it is until now. But I think certainly there are aspects of it that we do want to push, like you're saying, and I think especially with the emergence of all these like you're saying, online courses, and you can just go and do a week-long online course and say that you're a qualified personal trainer or something. It's kind of a bit garbage, really. So I think for us as a profession where we're wanting to have quality output, I think we need to be having people who have degrees plus practical experience and be working at that level that that makes a real impact.
Yeah, because I mean, NSCA here in I think 2030, something like that. I think in order to get, I'm not sure about the certified personal trainer, but I know for a fact that the CSCS, the strength conditioning certification, it's going to be mandatory that you have a degree in something related to exercise science, human movement, whatever. So I think that's a good first step for them, because currently, I mean, Joe Blow can get a psych degree and still get a CSCS if he reads the book. Like that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not to say that some of those people couldn't be good coaches, because I think potentially you could if you did all the research and did your own work and really studied it and committed yourself to it. But that happening is probably few and far between. So it probably is a good step to have that requirement, I think. And that's certainly something we're trying to do here with our degree accreditation.
Yeah, I mean, and that's another thing. Like in the U.S., like the turnover on trainers is like crazy. It's I think like the average trainer lasts like 2 years maybe, and then if you make it beyond that, you're probably going to be doing pretty well.
Yeah.
You're probably very invested.
It's what we've seen with when we've worked with some of our partners over in the US, because obviously you've got the S&C coaches working in university sport, and there's common themes within that they often the management of those departments isn't as good as it should be, purely because the management don't understand the department and the profession, and it's led to situations where sometimes the departments aren't functioning as well as they could, or the staff that they've hired aren't really competent as they should be within that area, and you've had some bad situations of injuries and athlete deaths and things like that. You've got certain images of the profession where people don't really understand what an S&C coach does in that environment. There's often people complain about how much they get paid. They're not paid well enough for the level of quality that's there. And it all comes down to this kind of understanding of what the profession is. And that message needs to be sold to the other stakeholders, the management, higher up levels of the university. And there's a lot that goes into that, like we're talking about certification, having qualifications. but also how we can demonstrate ourselves as professionals, and that's one of the main purposes of the external evaluation that we're doing, to have that level of kind of audit from an independent viewpoint, which can help ensure those standards and work towards those levels of best practice, which in turn hopefully should, certainly to management and other areas, demonstrate the work that is going on and the value that is there. And maybe that will help again in terms of how much people get paid, job security, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, man. And I went to Ohio State, so big university here. I played soccer there, so me looking back on my experience with my strength coach, they put us through workouts, but it was more than the workout that gets you to where and I don't think a lot of people understand that it's not just like, oh, he's a strength coach, he's all he does all day is like write programs and that's it. I think it's more than that, and that's the same thing with me when I'm running my own business. We're we do more than we focus on like each individual, like how they are, like and try to groom each person. It's not just like, the team, we're going to put them through a workout and then send them on their way. We got to, maybe somebody has an issue. Typically they go to the strength coach because they're able to have that, communication with them. So there's a lot of psychological things that we deal with that I don't think a lot of, higher stakeholders really understand, because, they're not, in the gym watching what's going on.
Yeah. I think it's hard as well for like strength and conditioning, personal training, things like that. Because like you say, especially if we're wanting to be science-based in what we're doing, because if you've been taught in the scientific method and scientific principles, then you're kind of taught to be a little bit skeptical, and you kind of downplay things a little bit, and you want to just kind of analyze the data and be a bit quiet. You're not really shouting about what you do and overemphasizing and saying this is the best thing ever, this is going to change the world, and we're really good and we deserve all this. It kind of doesn't go well with that kind of scientific education side of it. So which is a little bit different to some areas of business, or certainly corporate messaging and things, which are very much kind of almost tricking people in a way, because they're playing on that psychology of saying, that messaging of what we're doing well and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of not what we typically focus on within our profession, and perhaps we let ourselves down a little bit with that, or how we message that to other people.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and it's something that like I said, like I think it's something that like it needs to be. We need to be able to voice that, because if we don't voice that, it's going to be the same. Nothing's really going to change. And you talking about the pay, it's literally that conversation pops up in one of these like NSCA groups. I mean, at least once a month.
Yeah.
A job will be open at like a big university, and it's like, 25, 30K. And they're like, what, like, how does somebody live off of that? Especially here in the US. And especially if it's, in a city like DC or LA or, like those big cities where, it's expensive to live. It's not cheap. And, and I personally think, and that's why, like, somebody mentioned in one time that like a lot of the strength coaches in the universities, spend their time there and, make their name and do what they got to do. But then they just book it and just go into the private sector where they know like they're going to get more money, because, what they did at a university is, they can sort of message that to everybody out there.
Yeah. I mean, the levels of pay thing is something that's so difficult to change, particularly because because there's a lot of factors involved. One thing is that it's a desirable profession, and generally in any desirable profession, the level of competition for jobs is high. So that means people are willing to do jobs for lower and lower money, and you do see that in other professions as well, and that's a difficult one to get over. One of the other things is emphasizing the quality, which I think we can definitely do better through, letting people know better what we do, selling ourselves better as coaches and as staff and things like that. And we can definitely do that better. Holding ourselves to a higher level of account, we can obviously do better through things like the external evaluation we're doing, things like accreditations and making sure that we have experience and then things like that. So there are things we can do. And I think one thing that we're also trying to do at the moment, which we're starting with universities in the UK, is remuneration guidelines. So, guideline salaries. We kind of starting with universities in the UK on that, because universities in the UK are all supposed to grade jobs, no matter what the job is, based on the skills of the job. So, when they write a job profile, they should detail what level of education is required, what level of skills required to do certain aspects, what level of management, what level of leadership, and then no matter what the job is, it's graded on that scale.
Okay.
And typically what's happened is, because they kind of know they can get away with it, S&C coaches have been graded a lot lower than the job actually is. So it's not paid according to what it should be, and that actually is going against what university policies are supposed to be. So we're working on a document at the moment to get those jobs graded properly at levels that they should actually be graded at, which will obviously help give those guidelines for S&C coaches at universities in the UK. Where it's like within the professional sectors, I think that's harder to change, because like I say, with market value, teams can choose to pay what they want. But I think if universities take that first step in doing that, they can almost be a driving force where other sectors would look in and probably copy them then. So they can be kind of a driving force for that. And, maybe on the back of that work, then we can look at universities over in America, other parts of the world, and other things like that.
I mean, I have no idea, but when you're training or like a strength coach at a professional level, is the salary like really low? I have no idea.
It varies massively. It really does vary massively. Okay. Yeah, I mean,
so it's massively by sport or team.
Everything. So
really,
some head S&C coaches at big Division I universities will be, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
You talking about here or in UK?
Yeah, over in the US.
Yeah.
And then, as you'll know, some assistant coach salaries are absolutely terrible. In the UK, at universities, they're kind of, as an S&C coach, you're generally probably looking at $40,000 a year. If you're a lead S&C or a head S&C at a good university, then that might be $50,000 to $60,000 a year. But then some universities will be much lower. So the spread of salaries is much different. If you're working at a professional team, it's more like what the salaries would be like over in America. So if you're working for a big Premier League soccer team, and you're the head of director of performance or whatever, you could be earning over 100,000, no problem, 200,000. Where some of the assistant coach jobs or academy jobs are probably 25, 30,000. So you see that big spread.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how that works. So what organizations have you partnered with here? Like, is it mostly universities, or is it like actual businesses that you're working with? Like, what is the
Yeah, I mean, mostly universities. We're working on a few, obviously, commercial partnerships and things like that. So, Sound Probiotics, a probiotic company, is coming as one of our sponsors, and we've got a few commercial partnerships that we're developing. But yeah, the main work that we're doing is with universities over in America. I think we've got close to 50 universities now that we're working with, and some of the big ones like Clemson, Georgetown,
Oh, really?
UCLA, UNC. So there's a number of pretty good universities that we're trying to develop things with, like our external evaluation program. We're doing like internships and summer placements and things like that. Sharing a best practice. So quite a lot of projects going on.
So give me like an example of, you know, what you're doing for like Clemson or Georgetown. Like, are you particularly focusing on their S&C or exercise science undergraduate program, or are you mostly working with the sports side of it, like the
Yeah. So
athletes and the
yeah.
things like that,
So
or is it a combination?
well, with those universities that you mentioned, the ones mostly in America, it's mostly the performance departments,
Okay.
so the S&C departments. Although we are offering the external evaluation out to the wider athletic department, and it would actually function best as a review and kind of an independent audit of the whole department, because a lot of what we're looking at is how the department collaborates and interacts with different departments, because that's a big part of how it functions. But yeah, the basic process is that we get the department to fill out all the details of going right through health and safety, how they recruit staff, how they manage staff, how they develop staff, how they review those staff, how they develop athletes, strength programs, power programs, speed, how they review and monitor those athletes, what facilities they have. We literally audit the whole thing. We then carry out a site visit where there's a member from the IUSCA and also another independent member from another peer university. So another university, perhaps of a similar size or a similar scale, someone from that staff we bring in as a consultant to help take part in that independent audit. And then what we do is we meet with the staff, we provide them feedback, like I say, on what we think they do really well, areas we think that they could improve, or ideas of best practice that we think they could tweak. And we kind of look in that way from the independent viewpoint, and then we provide them with a report that's really great to give to, you know, the athletics director or higher up management, which really will demonstrate in an independent way what that department does, how it functions, what recommendations we have, because we'll often put in that they probably are understaffed, or if we think that they should be valued more or should be paid more or should have better equipment. And we can do that from an independent viewpoint, where it's not just someone within that department saying, you know, we want more money, or we want more equipment, or we want more of this. It's, you know, that independent view coming in and looking at it from that viewpoint, and saying what from that independent level would be best practice.
Awesome. I like that. So it's kind of like, so it's kind of like a, you know, just kind of a review or some feedback on, you know, the athletic performance slash, athletics side of things, and seeing like what they're doing is legitimate and like makes sense and for progress, like, you know, going forward, if they need any tips or whatever. I think that's great, man. I mean, that's probably never done before.
Not within strength and conditioning, definitely,
No.
which is why we wanted to bring it in, because I think it'll help work on a lot of the factors we've talked about in terms of, you know, professionalizing the profession, you know, giving a good view of what we actually do, helping spread that message to other stakeholders. So it is something that's important, but it is something that is done within other sectors. So it's something that's done a lot within things like healthcare, medicine.
Yeah.
You know, they're massive on things like that, huge on it, and it's all part of what makes it a professional industry, really.
No, I like that. I mean, I think that's a good thing because, like you said, it happens in every other sector. There's always some independent review, which is, important because, you and I know, like when you're like in it, you don't really like sit. I mean, you might have a review every once in a while of like what you're doing, maybe get input from like your employees, but there's always like, it's always good to get that outside point of view because it allows you, like me personally or you personally, to grow and to work on things that you might be weak at, or work on things that like you're really strong at and get better at those things. And then it might be good for university because then you never know, like, are they utilizing something that's worthless and they don't spend money on that, and so they allocate that money to something else. Because I'll be honest with you, like I'm sure there's universities here that allocate money in places that they don't need to because it's not necessary.
Yeah, and I think it's vital for universities really when they put so much investment and there's so much at stake when you're talking about the health and well-being of their student athletes. You like I say, you've had cases unfortunately in the past where people have died or really bad injuries or lots of different scenarios, and universities ultimately are responsible for that. And with how much investment they put into sport and scholarships and facilities and things like that, they should really want to ensure that their departments are running as well as possible, for that investment they're making, but also for that health and well-being of the student athletes.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I mean, here's one example that definitely has changed is, I was at Ohio State in like 2008, and I think it was like a year or two later that a pretty well-known basketball player was, using social media to kind of like say his message of like, I sometimes go to bed with no food. And I mean, well-known athlete, plays in the NBA. And then it was like immediate that the universities and NCAA like started to really invest in nutrition, which is like that's a no-brainer, fueling is to me like one of the, like, obviously strength and conditioning is great, the workouts, whatever, but fueling, recovering, all that kind of stuff, it's like that's when you're getting better. It's not when you're doing the stuff. And so it was like an immediate change, like overnight. They were like, all right, we're going to put out more food, we're going to do this, we're going to have fueling stations. And then 4 or 5 years later, it's like every university is providing like they're very big on sports nutritionists, fueling in the gym, like right immediately after, like they have all this stuff ready for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's great. I think that's an awesome thing that you guys are doing. I think it will be a huge benefit for not only universities, but I also think like it will trickle down into the private sector. I think it will help out, the professionals. I mean, we know that, at that pro level, especially in the U.S., maybe at the first team level, everything is pretty much taken care of. But if they're, really, really focused on investing money in their younger athletes that might, make it to the first team, it's not, I'll be honest with you, not every pro team is like what it is in Europe, where they got, a head athletic, sports performance coach. Like, believe me, not every, even the one I'm in DC, the one that is here, they don't have that for their academy team. It's just sad. It's unfortunate because, like, this area where I live, the quality of soccer is very high.
Yep.
And the fact that you can invest in something like that for your, basically future players, is something that like needs to be changed. So it's important. I mean, I think what you guys are doing is going to be a game changer. Obviously, it's going to take time for people to really understand it and buy in and things like that. But that's part of the process. So
yeah, I think just like you say with the professional organizations, I think it would have a huge impact on those professional organizations as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like you say, it'll perhaps be a bit of that trickle down effect once a number of universities have gone through it and see the benefits. Then I think professional organizations will be very keen to do something similar.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's huge, and I think a lot of organizations don't do such a thing, especially at the sports level, because it's so like hit or miss. With some of these players, you might have a really good player like developing, and he might make it or he might not make it. So like, should we invest all that money? But it's like, look at Arsenal, for instance. What's his name at Arsenal? The guy with the youth, he's in the academy level. I forget his name. Desmond. He was here at the NSCA national conference, and he was talking about what they do, how much they invested in the Arsenals, and I'm sure you've seen it.
Yep.
And it's crazy. And you see, like, I mean, I'm not saying like their first team is doing great, but I'm sure a lot of players are making it there, or they're selling their players, and it's helping them groom players.
Yep.
So it's not a waste of money. It's necessary. And to be honest with you, it's like something I got to do on a daily basis to try to get parents, that send their kids here, why it's important for their kid, even if they want to play college, or even if they're still playing, club soccer, why is it important? It's important because, it's going to build confidence, not only like so many other things besides the performance side of things. But, I think, I would be all in for somebody to come in here or something even at the private sector level and say, hey, look, like, I think this is where you need to focus your things on, boom, 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 and you'll have more success.
Yep.
So I should ask you at this beginning, like, what's your background? Like, how many people are in the organization? I know it's new, so like, what are like your guys's, I guess, credentials?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, I grew up in England, playing basketball. Played kind of a high level junior basketball over in England, and then went over to university in Oregon.
Really? Where?
Yeah. Did my degree at Linfield University. So I was there for 4 years. Studied biology and exercise science. Playing basketball as well.
Basketball? Okay.
Yeah, and then
D3? Is that D3 or D2?
Yeah, D3. And then came back, played professionally over in the UK for a year, and then did a master's degree in sport and exercise physiology at a big sports university over in the UK, and then worked in various sectors. Worked in professional rugby for a while.
I feel like everybody in S&C always is in rugby in the UK.
Yeah, it's a good
point.
It's a good entry point because they take S&C pretty seriously.
No, I know they do.
As you need to, because it's such a physical sport.
Yeah.
So it's a really good environment to learning. So I definitely recommend getting involved in rugby if anyone gets the opportunities. And then I worked with Great Britain basketball for a number of years, and then I was the head of strength and conditioning at Sheffield Hallam University, which again is a big sports university over in the UK, where we started making a lot of the contacts then that we've developed within the organisation. Within the organisation, we've got myself and another director, Aidan Flanagan, who currently works with Leicester City football. And then we've got Stephen Bird, who's our editor-in-chief of the journal, who's over in a professor over in Australia. And then all of our, partners in the UK. Like I say, we've got around 50 universities in the US that we're partnering with. Number of universities over in the UK, some over in Australia. So yeah, just developing that organization really.
Yeah, it's awesome. So the guy at Leicester City, he's the head director of performance?
He works with the women's program.
Oh, okay, women's side. Okay, awesome. What's the goal, like, what's the goal for like this year? Like, where do you guys see it? Like, where do you want to expand to? Is it just, right now, let's just focus on, university. Let's get that, set in stone, get data from that and things like that. And then, kind of branch out.
Yeah, I think so. I think we really want to get these initiatives rolled out this year to a wider audience. So the degree accreditation, the external evaluations, and growing the journal. I think they're the main keys for this year. To reach as many departments and universities as we can with that, and help progress that part of the industry. And then I think we'll have a lot of other avenues kind of branching off from that as we go through with it really through this year.
So with the journal, like, what's the focus there? Like, is there a specific, is there specific things that you guys are, putting in the journal, or is it like a broad range of topics?
It's pretty broad. I mean, it's obviously strength and conditioning focus, but we do branch a little bit wider into, exercise physiology and kinesiology and nutrition and things like that. One of our original aims was to open it up to be that bridging the gap. So we did kind of a series of articles on that bridging the gap topic. And that's definitely one of the areas that we're keen to get more submissions. So from practitioners and coaches who can submit case studies and their kind of informed opinions, evidence-based experience, things like that typically don't get published in journals. I think some of that's really important. So we're definitely pushing for that. But then all your traditional research as well, it's open and available for all of that.
So are you looking for more like lab-based research, or is it you trying to get more like, practical, where, it's like a football team and somebody might be doing a year-long study on, some football team or rugby or whatever on a specific topic?
Yeah. All of that.
All that and above.
We're happy with all of that. Like I say, I think some of those case studies are really valuable because they're areas that are not currently widely published. Like we said before, you get a lot of lab-based research on very minute areas of muscle function or something, and then you get very informal based blog posts online written by coaches, but they're not really referenced. They're not really, a lot of times, not evidence-based. So this does give that opportunity to have something in between that, where an experienced coach can bring in their, what we call like informed opinion, back it up with some citations and research. So a little bit more of a formalized version of that kind of blog post. And I think they'd be great to include within the journal.
Okay. So it's a little less formal. I'm not saying it's like I'm not saying it's like informal or formal. I mean, I think maybe not as, you can give it a little bit more like a day-to-day type like thing for like a coach versus something where it's like, rigorous, like, parameters that you're living in, just kind of like, all right, at
There's
the
a
end
little
of the
bit wider
day,
scope.
yeah. Okay, cool.
There's
Yeah, I mean, I think that's necessary, because you got to understand that, like you said in the beginning of our conversation, it's chaos. It's never anything where it's always known. Like there's a lot of unknown that goes on in training, in in a game, any game. Like you never know. Like I think it's I think I think to me personally, I think the best research is trying to get research from a game.
Mm.
Get the research from the game, see how the player is, depending on obviously on the topic. So yeah, that's awesome. Well, kind of, so maybe to sum it up a little bit, like, what's, as, okay. And I always ask this at a lot of my podcasts. It's like, you're in something right now that's, you're trying to broaden, and help out, obviously universities and things like that. But if you were to, have a conversation with a strength coach that was up and coming, what's some suggestions, tips, that you would give to them, or even if it's tips just in general on strength conditioning, like for an athlete, like what are some tips as a professional that you are that will help them, make it to their goal, or as a strength coach, like make it to wherever they want to be.
I think for coaches, it's important to look at all the areas of development that they need. So, and we've talked about them today. It's kind of getting that background experience, getting that understanding of science. So learning all of your physiology, anatomy, really making sure you understand all of those areas, but then making sure that you get as much practical experience as you can. Training yourself, training your friends, taking work placement opportunities, reaching out to do internships. Even if it's voluntary to begin with, just getting that experience, I think, is really important. And then as you progress to university, thinking about what degree you can do and what opportunities that will give you with further work placements, experience and opportunities, and just making those contacts then, because I think those contacts will help you as you then look for paid employment and all of that. And I think just getting as much experience within different sports, different age groups, different levels of ability even can help you then, because you learn how to apply different aspects of S&C then in any scenario. If you've experienced all of that, if you've been there with elite athletes, if you've been there with amateurs, if you've been there in terrible facilities, if you've been there in great facilities, you kind of get an understanding of what's going to work when and how to do it. So be really willing to go through all of that, and you kind of need to go through all of that if you're wanting to be successful as an S&C coach.
Yeah.
And similar to athletes, for athletes, it's if you really want to be successful at the top level, you have to be willing to work on everything. It's not just, most people aren't going to be talented enough to just rely on their natural ability in a sport. They're going to have to spend extra hours developing different aspects to their game. They're going to have to spend hours in the gym getting stronger, more powerful, quicker, improving their endurance. They're going to have to work on their flexibility. They're going to have to think about their nutrition. They're going to have to think about their recovery and their sleep. There's so much that goes into it if they wanted to get to the elite level. I think there's only a few lucky people who can perhaps rely on their talent. But even then, the very best will go that step further if they wanted to be at the best and focus on all the other things. So, there's some similarities there between
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
trying to reach goals.
A question just popped in my head. You have been around different levels of athletes, but also different levels of the SEC. And you just obviously made kind of like a correlation between this SEC and the athlete, and like kind of getting yourself into different as an athlete, like different understanding how to recover and like all that kind of stuff. And then you have the SEC who's putting themselves into different scenarios to learn. As you as an SNC, like what do you think has helped you the most? And then what has from that, like how can you say and being around different athletes, like how have you been able to help those athletes just because you learned something from somewhere else?
Yeah, I think for me it's the different experience that I've had at different places. They're the big game changers for me. Doing those voluntary work placements and internships at professional rugby clubs with good coaches, taking those opportunities. I think, like I say, that's really where you learn how to apply the things that you've been taught. And there's, it's very difficult to do it otherwise. So getting that exposure to all of those different athletes is definitely the most important thing for me.
So I figured. Yeah, I mean, I think that's I think that has helped me too. I mean, I've exposed myself to, private gyms, bigger gyms, being around different athletes, training different types of people. It's I think one thing that I wish I continue to, hopefully here in the future, expose myself to that, pro level. It's obviously, only a certain percentage make it. And so you kind of like, you think like, what's the difference? Is it a lot in here, in your brain, in your mindset, or is it like these people are, built differently, like, than others? So it's interesting. It's interesting to just see like the different, how do I want to describe it? Different, like, who makes it, who doesn't, like why? Like I always figure out, like, you see some sick players not make it. You always wonder, like, okay, what's is it physiologically, or is it just giving up?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that work ethic thing. When you look at elite sport, there's a few. Well, I mean, everyone's a high level physically at elite sport, but there's a very small minority who we call like the freaks, who are super gifted, who perhaps even if they didn't train that much, they're still going to be pros. They're pretty good. Then you get a few of those again who have that ability and they work hard, and they're the greatest of all times, the Michael Jordans, the LeBron James, Ronaldo, those type of athletes who are supernaturally gifted and they do the hard work. And then you get some athletes who are still better than average physically, but they're not amazing, but they do the hard work. They work hard as anything, put in that effort, find a way to do it. So you get all of that kind of spectrum of those different type of athletes. But I'd say for 99.9999% of people, focus on the improving your skills and the hard work and doing everything, because you're probably not going to be one of those freak athletes, to be honest.
Right. Yeah, I know. So true. But yeah, I mean, again, like, and that's the thing. Like, I hate to downplay the American society, but the work ethic that I see some kids, and then they complain about why they never don't make it. It's kind of right in front of them. It's like you're only doing this much, but the kids that are making it are doing it every day.
Yep.
And I think that's the I think that's the biggest problem in this country. I mean, I hate to say it, is the kids here, um, they only go to training or only go to things when it's set up
Yeah.
versus, outside this country. I mean, I'm half Turkish, so I've seen other world and a totally different world when, kids are playing in the middle of the street. Like it's like, they don't care, we want to play, or they're doing extra work, or so you see a small percentage of those type of kids here, especially working on your skills and, getting better at the sport. I mean, obviously the strength and conditioning side of things is kind of, you have to do it, when it's set up, because you want to make sure that you're doing everything correctly. It's a very technique, form, all that stuff is done right, because you don't want to get injured. Versus playing your sport, you can kind of go outside and shoot hoops for hours, or go outside and mess around with the ball for hours. Like it's not, there's not much that needs to be looked at.
Yeah, you do see that sometimes. You get a few athletes who you almost have to pull back a little bit.
Yeah.
The few who have really great work ethics, who want to train all the time, which is sometimes great for their sport, like you're saying, if it's a skill that they're trying to perfect, and you need to just do repetition, but then they maybe bring that same work ethic into other areas, like the fitness or the strength, and then you have to kind of pull them back a little bit and explain to them that they need the rest and the recovery. So that's like the other side of the coin, which you occasionally get as well.
Yeah, that's true. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's true, and it's necessary for those kids, because there are kids that just there's no throttle. It's just 100% all the time. I want to be the best.
Yeah.
And in more times than not, those kids typically get injured more, which is, it should be a wake up call to them if they're constantly injured. So, well, Andrew, how can people get more information about the IUSCA, and get access to the journal, and just keep learning a little bit more about your association, and maybe if they want to connect with you and figure out, kind of have a conversation with you about what you guys are doing and maybe help them out?
Sure. I mean, the best way is through the website. So www.iusca.org. That's got all the information on, all the links to the journal, everything else. We're also through all social media channels. If you search IUSCA, you'll come across us. You can sign up for the website free, and you'll be sent out content, and the journal, again, 100% free to submit, free to publish, free to read. Obviously, if they're involved in any degree programs or university programs and they're interested in the work we can do, can get in contact directly. So I look forward to hearing from people.
One last question. So they can submit, so if they submit, is it almost guaranteed that it's going to be in the journal, or do you guys just dump, you guys, there's a process?
Yeah, so everything that's submitted would undergo a quick review by one of our editors. If it's garbage, then it's just going to get rejected straight away. If it's of good quality, it doesn't have to be exceptional, but if it's of good quality and they've followed the guidelines and reference things, then it will go up in what we call community review.
Okay.
So it's like a pre-publication. It goes up online in this community review stage, where then anyone in the community can take part in the peer review process over a month-long period. At the end of that period, then they can choose to make adjustments or changes. It will undergo traditional peer review, like you'd normally get in a journal, by an editor, and then it would have the final decision of whether it gets officially published or not.
Okay, so I mean, it's kind of a good way for somebody that might, be new to publishing and getting their name out there.
Yep.
It's awesome. Cool. Well, man, it was good to talk to you. It was good to meet you and connect. Hopefully we have another conversation. And hope you have a good rest of the day.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for inviting me on. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, man.
Thanks for listening to Train to Perform with Julian Sisman. Learn how you can work with Julian in a personal training session, either online or in person, at prepareforperformance.com. And follow on social media for more tips on training, fitness, and sports performance. On Twitter at jsisman_PFP and Instagram at prepareforperformance.